Why kind people always get hurt. The truth no one sees. Have you ever found yourself wondering why the people with the softest hearts often carry the heaviest wounds? Why those who give the most are usually the most taken for granted? Why the ones who shine light into others' lives are the first to be left in the dark when they need someone? I have, and it bothers me deeply. We live in a world that praises kindness publicly but preys on it privately. And the truth no one wants to admit is this: kind people get hurt not because they are weak, but because the world doesn't know how to handle unguarded strength. Let's be real. Kindness is rarely just a personality trait. It is often born from pain. Many of the kindest people you'll ever meet have endured the worst. They know what it feels like to be broken, abandoned, or unseen. So when they see someone else in pain, they naturally step in. It's almost instinctual. But here's the paradox. The more they give, the more invisible they become. It's as if the world starts expecting them to absorb pain without protest. People stop asking if they're okay. They assume the kind ones will always show up, always smile, always say yes. And slowly, without even realizing it, we turn them into emotional pack mules carrying burdens that aren't theirs, all while hiding their own. But why? Why is it that those who offer the most love often receive the least in return? The answer is not simple. It lies buried beneath layers of human psychology, social dynamics, and philosophical contradictions. The truth is, when you are kind, you disrupt the world's expectations. You operate on a moral frequency that others may not understand or even believe in. You forgive when vengeance is expected. You stay when walking away would be easier. You see light in people who only show you darkness. And because of that, people begin to project their unresolved guilt, shame, and insecurity onto you. The kind person becomes the emotional mirror that reflects everyone else's flaws and that makes people uncomfortable. So instead of appreciating that kindness, many will subconsciously punish it. They'll test it, exploit it. They'll push boundaries just to see how far they can go. And the kind person, driven by empathy, will often let them. Not because they're naive, but because they believe in redemption. They believe people can change, that love heals, that if they just give enough, maybe, just maybe, the world will soften. But it rarely does. Now ask yourself this: have you ever hurt someone who was only trying to help you? Have you ever distanced yourself from the one person who showed you unconditional love, simply because their presence reminded you of the parts of yourself you weren't ready to face? We all have, and that's the uncomfortable truth. Kind people get hurt because their love is a spotlight and not everyone wants to be seen. Their presence demands internal accountability. It challenges others to grow, and growth is painful. So rather than face that discomfort, people leave, or worse, they stay and drain the kind person until there's nothing left.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And yet, here's the real tragedy. Kind people rarely show their pain. They bleed internally. They smile through betrayal. They offer second chances when they've barely recovered from the first. They keep pouring from a cup that no one bothers to refill. And over time, that emptiness becomes their normal. They stop expecting reciprocity. They start accepting emotional crumbs. And eventually, they forget that they too deserve the same love they so freely give. But here's a thought: what if kindness isn't just a virtue, but a form of rebellion? A defiant act in a world that constantly rewards ego over empathy. When you choose kindness, you are choosing to swim against the current of selfishness. You are choosing to feel in a world that numbs. And that is not weakness. That is strength in its purest form. So why do we treat it like a liability? Think about this. If we lived in a world where emotional intelligence was valued as much as academic achievement, would kind people still be treated like doormats? If we taught children that boundaries are an extension of self-love, would empathy still be seen as an invitation for exploitation? These are not just soft questions, they are revolutionary ones. Because the truth is, we have created a culture where kindness is seen as optional, when in reality, it's essential. and those who embody it often go unrecognized until they're gone. Only when the kind person walks away do people finally see what they had. But by then, it's too late. So I want to ask you something profound. What if your kindness is not just a gift, but a test for others and for yourself? What if every act of compassion is a mirror that reveals who people truly are? And what if the pain you feel isn't a punishment, but a sign that you are growing stronger in a world that desperately needs more of you? This is the invisible burden of empathy, a kind soul's silent struggle. And it's time we see it for what it really is, not a weakness to fix, but a wisdom to honor. The philosophy of exploitation, why goodness attracts predators. There's a chilling truth most people don't want to admit. Goodness, when unguarded, becomes a target. Not because the world is evil in its entirety, but because many have learned to survive by taking from those who won't fight back. And who are those people? The kind ones, the givers, the forgivers, the ones who would rather break themselves than break someone else. But here's where it gets philosophically disturbing. There is a pattern to this, a deeply rooted psychological mechanism that makes the kind-hearted an ideal source for emotional exploitation. And it starts with this strange paradox. The more you give freely, the less people value what you're giving. When someone shows up for you over and over again without expectation, without demand, you begin to assume their presence is permanent. You start to believe their love is a default setting, that their forgiveness is infinite, that their patience is just who they are, not a conscious choice they make every single day. And once we stop seeing kindness as a choice, we stop respecting it. This is where exploitation begins, not always with malice, but with familiarity. The exploiter doesn't always look like a villain. Sometimes they're the people closest to you. A friend, a lover, a family member, someone who knows exactly how much you care and uses it as leverage. So let's go deeper. Why does goodness attract predators? Because predators seek environments where resistance is minimal and rewards are high. In nature, they don't attack the strongest prey, they go for the one that's limping, unaware, or isolated. In the realm of human relationships, the prey isn't the physically weak, it's the emotionally open. People who lead with their heart, people who assume the best in others, people who haven't built walls, because they believe love isn't meant to be caged. And here lies the tragedy. Predators don't just sense vulnerability, they are trained by the culture to exploit it. Think about the messages we absorb. Nice guys finish last. Don't be too available. If you're too soft, they'll walk all over you. These aren't just sayings, they're warnings dressed as wisdom. Society doesn't just fail to protect kind people, it conditions them to feel guilty for expecting boundaries. And when you're conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to your usefulness, you become addicted to giving, even when it hurts, even when it's destroying you. Have you ever noticed how the kindest people keep finding themselves in toxic dynamics? It's not coincidence, it's a cycle. Kindness without boundaries is like a house without walls anyone can walk in, rearrange the furniture, and leave a mess. And the kind person will clean it up silently, blaming themselves for leaving the door open. But here's the philosophical twist. Is it truly kindness if it causes self-harm? Or is it martyrdom? Where do we draw the line between compassion and self-erasure? And yet the kind person keeps giving. Why? Because they see what others could become, not just what they are. They believe in potential. They love the soul behind the scars. But potential is not a promise. It's a possibility. And predators know this. They present a version of themselves that plays into the kind person's desire to fix, to heal, to redeem. It's manipulation disguised as vulnerability. And by the time the kind person realizes what's happening, they're already emotionally invested. They've convinced themselves that walking away would be betrayal, and so they stay, enduring slow emotional corrosion under the illusion of love or loyalty. Ask yourself this. Have you ever stayed in a relationship not because it was healthy, but because you didn't want to give up on someone? Is it possible that your empathy made you blind to how much you were being used? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary. Because until we confront the ways our kindness is being weaponized against us, we will continue to suffer in silence. So what's the solution? Do we stop being kind? Do we build walls so high that no one can reach us? No, that would be surrendering to cynicism. The answer isn't less kindness, it's wiser kindness. It's learning to pair empathy with discernment, love with limits, generosity with grounding, because kindness without wisdom invites exploitation. But kindness with wisdom, that's power. That's the kind of love that transforms, not just endures. The cost of being the light. When healing others leaves you empty, there's a quiet tragedy that plays out in the lives of kind people, and it's rarely spoken aloud. They often become the healers of the world while silently bleeding themselves dry. They are the ones who answer calls at 2 a.m. listen without judgment, who hold space for others' pain even when their own heart is breaking. They are the light in the darkness for so many. But what happens when the light has no one to light it back up? What happens when the healer needs healing and there's no one left to turn to? That's the hidden cost of being the light, and it's a cost that can go unnoticed until it's far too late. You see, when you make it your mission to be a safe space for others, people come to rely on you. They begin to associate your presence with relief, with clarity, with comfort. You become a sanctuary, not because you asked to be, but because that's who you are. But in becoming that sanctuary, you slowly begin to neglect your own needs. You put yourself second, third, last because someone else always seems to need you more. And the world, seeing your strength, assumes you're fine. No one thinks to ask the strong friend if they're okay. No one checks on the light, because the light is always on. But light too has fuel. And once that fuel runs out, it doesn't matter how much you want to shine, you simply can't. This is the existential dilemma that kind people face. The more they give, the less they receive, until giving becomes a form of self-destruction. And yet, they continue. Not because they don't feel the emptiness, but because they don't know how not to give. Their identity becomes so tied to being the helper, the fixer, the supporter, that the very idea of taking a step back feels like betrayal to others and to themselves. But here's the philosophical twist. When giving becomes compulsive, it stops being compassion and starts becoming codependency. You begin to measure your worth by how much you can endure. You start to believe that love must hurt, that sacrifice equals value, that boundaries are selfish, and in doing so, you abandon yourself in the name of service. But self-abandonment is not virtue, it is slow suicide. You cannot heal the world by breaking yourself to pieces. You cannot be the light if you are burning out. So ask yourself, have you ever felt guilty for saying no, even when you were exhausted? Have you ever stayed in a draining relationship because you didn't want to hurt the other person, even if it meant hurting yourself? Have you ever smiled through your own pain just to make someone else feel better? If so, then you've experienced the cost of being the light. And it's a cost no one talks about. Because society has taught us that kindness is only noble when it's sacrificial, that love is only real when it's unconditional. But what if those ideals are flawed? What if the highest form of love includes loving yourself enough to say, I can't carry this anymore? The truth is, healing others isn't inherently harmful, but it becomes dangerous when you believe it's your responsibility. You are not responsible for fixing everyone. You are not obligated to absorb other people's pain to prove your love. You can be a light without setting yourself on fire. And yet so many kind people don't believe that. They've been taught that love means endurance, that being good means being available, always. But what if true goodness is knowing when to rest, when to retreat, when to say, I matter too? This is a radical idea in a world that glorifies selflessness, but it's necessary, because if you do not protect your light, it will go out. And when it does, who will hold space for you? The healer must also be healed. The giver must also receive. The light must also be warmed. This isn't selfish, it's sustainable. It's the only way kindness can endure without becoming a burden. So maybe the real question isn't how much more you can give, but how much longer you can go on giving without giving to yourself. And maybe the most profound act of love you can offer the world is to love yourself enough to replenish, to rest, to rebuild. Because only then can your light shine without flickering. Only then can your kindness become a source of strength, not suffering. When the world finally sees you, the unexpected power of walking away, there comes a moment in every kind person's life that feels like a quiet revolution. It's not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. In fact, it often feels like loss. But it is, in truth, the beginning of everything. The moment they finally choose themselves. After years, sometimes decades of showing up for others, of holding pain that wasn't theirs, of sacrificing their peace to maintain someone else's comfort, the kind person realizes something radical. They can walk away. And when they do, the world finally sees them. It's strange, isn't it? How people only begin to notice your value when you stop offering it freely, when you stop answering the phone, when your silence replaces your constant support, when the space you used to fill with love, presence, and forgiveness suddenly feels empty. It's in that absence that people begin to grasp the weight you carried, the light you brought, the peace you embodied. But by then, something inside you has shifted. You no longer need them to see it, because you finally do. Walking away is not the same as giving up. It's not bitterness. It's not revenge. It's not a cold-hearted act. It's clarity. It's the moment you realize that your kindness was never the problem, it was the lack of boundaries around it. It's when you understand that love is not proven through suffering, that staying in places that hurt you doesn't make you loyal, it makes you lost. And you're done being lost in other people's storms while they find shelter in your soul. This choice to walk away is deeply philosophical. It's the reclaiming of your own narrative. You are no longer the background character in someone else's chaos. You become the author of your own peace. And peace, true peace, often begins with subtraction, removing yourself from dynamics that drain you, letting go of roles that were never yours to play, saying goodbye not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself. And here's the twist the world never expects. When the kind person walks away, everything changes. The people who took you for granted are forced to confront their behavior. Some will try to pull you back, not out of love, but out of panic, because your presence made their dysfunction easier to bear. Others will grow and perhaps, years later, thank you for being the wake-up call they needed. But none of that is your responsibility. Your healing is not a performance. It's a return to wholeness, to boundaries, to joy, to a life where your energy is directed toward people and places that nourish you, where kindness is a bridge, not a burden, where love flows both ways. This is not a utopian fantasy, it's a result of conscious choice. And yes, it's hard. Saying no when you've been programmed to say yes. Letting go of people you once believed you couldn't live without. Enduring the silence that follows self-respect. But in that silence, something beautiful begins to grow. Self-trust. When you walk away, you stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself. You stop shrinking to fit into places that were never meant for you. You stop defining your worth by how much you can carry for others. And you begin to realize that your kindness, when protected and placed in the right soil, becomes unstoppable. Not the kind of kindness that gets used, but the kind that inspires, transforms, and elevates. So here is the final question I leave you with, the one that only you can answer. If you gave yourself the same love, patience, and forgiveness you've given everyone else, who could you become? Because maybe, just maybe, the world doesn't need you to be endlessly available. Maybe the world needs you to be whole. And maybe the most powerful thing a kind person can ever do is walk away.